The air on Varelia tasted of rust and cinders. Dr. Elena Voss paused at the bottom of the ramp, her boots sinking half an inch into the fine red dust. The sun loomed low behind dark clouds, casting everything in a copper haze. Around her, a dozen white-clad medics fanned out from the UNS Halcyon Mercy, accompanied by modular drones unfolding into scanning units and mobile trade stations. No gun emplacements, no guards, no armor, noted Captain Emeka Onu, his Nigerian accent lilting as he fell into step beside her. "We're basically gift-wrapped." "That's the point," Elena replied without looking at him. "No one shoots the Red Cross." "Red Cross doesn't operate on Varelia," Emeka muttered under his breath. "No one does. Except us. And we'll make them remember that." The humanitarian fleet was the first of its kind from Earth. 5 fully equipped starships bearing only doctors, engineers, and peacekeepers. No warships. No escort fighters. Just mercy in its purest form. The Concorde had sanctioned their mission under Treaty Clause 9, neutral emergency aid. But in practice, Varelia was a diplomatic no-man's land. The Khazari Dominion and the Rilth Syndicate had signed a dozen ceasefires, only to break each one faster than the last. The planet was now a scorched graveyard littered with orbital wreckage and dead hopes. But still, the humans came. "Alpha Mash is up," Emeka said, checking his tablet. "First cases arriving in 10. Tell them to prepare for heavy trauma." Elena said. "Explosive pattern on the eastern ridge matches aerial cluster shells." "Got it." "And Doc." She turned. "Don't burn out in the first week." She offered him a weary smile. "That would imply I ever stop." Over the next 48 hours, the field camp blossomed like a white flower in a burnt forest. Pneumatic walls inflated into surgical bays. Drones deployed high-frequency deflectors to clear toxic particulates. Water purifiers ran nonstop. Crates of medical supplies were sorted by hand and AI alike. Dr. Voss worked 16 hours a day in the operating tent, hands drenched in alien and human blood alike. Shrapnel removal, skin grafts, bone reconstruction, childbirth, resuscitation, burn recovery. It was the purest expression of her purpose, life over death. On the 3rd day, a Virelian elder approached the outer checkpoint, holding the limp body of a boy with charred arms. His insectoid legs trembled beneath his robes as he fell to his knees, holding out the child like an offering. Dr. Voss herself ran to meet him. "Human," the elder rasped in broken trade. "You take. Save. Please." She took the boy without hesitation, arms slick with ash and sweat. They worked on him for 2 hours. When he stabilized, the elder wept openly, mandibles twitching. "You, not like others," he whispered. "No," Elena said, touching his shoulder. "We're not." At night, the camp glowed softly beneath the stars. Music played from open tents. Children laughed. Hope returned to Varelia in small, fragile pieces. But out beyond the ridge, in the burnt ruins of a former Khazari outpost, glinting eyes watched from behind rifle scopes. Words passed over encrypted channels. "The humans have no weapons." Orders. A pause. "Make an example." The attack began just before dawn. The eastern sky had barely begun to shift from deep violet to burnt orange when the first explosions tore through the quiet of the humanitarian camp. There were no warning sirens, no signs of approach. Just silence, then fire. Dr. Elena Voss was midway through changing a patient's IV line when the surgical tent erupted into chaos. The ground heaved as a kinetic strike slammed into the makeshift power generator, tearing it, and 2 nearby medics to pieces. A wall of flame rolled through the tent flap, followed by a deafening concussive shock. She hit the floor, shielding the patient's body with her own as ceiling supports collapsed. Screams filled the air, not from soldiers, not from warriors, from patients, burned, wounded, children still hooked up to machines, from nurses who had never held a weapon in their lives, from translators, hydrotechs, sanitation crews, the kind of people who came not to kill, but to keep others from dying. Outside, Captain Onu staggered into the open, blood streaming from a wound above his brow. He raised a hand toward the silhouette of a descending dropship, its Khazari emblem unmistakable against the lightening sky. "This is a humanitarian zone," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "You're violating Concord protocols." A rail round tore through his chest. He dropped without a sound. Gunfire erupted all around the camp, controlled bursts, surgical and precise. The Khazari strike team didn't waste ammo. They weren't here to fight. They were here to butcher. Across the camp, mobile med tents were set ablaze. Drones attempting to flee were shot from the sky. Power lines were severed. Water purifiers detonated. The white symbol of the Concord, the open hand, burned on every tent flap. Elena crawled out from under the wreckage, coughing, arms and face bleeding from shrapnel. She could barely hear through the ringing in her ears. The air was thick with smoke and screams. In the clearing, she saw them. 7 of her staff lined up on their knees, hands bound, faces bruised. A Khazari officer strode behind them, plasma pistol in hand. One by one, he executed them. Elena stumbled forward, rage and disbelief fueling her battered body. "Stop, please. They're doctors. Nurses." The officer paused, turning toward her with cold, compound eyes. "So were the ones your kind treated on the Rilth side. We're neutral. We treat everyone." The Khazari raised his pistol. The screen cut to black. Hours later, that footage, grainy, brutal, raw, spread across the Galactic Concord's network. Sent anonymously, it showed the execution of unarmed medics, the bombing of aid tents, and the death of Dr. Elena Voss. The public outcry was immediate. Protests erupted across member worlds. News anchors wept on live streams. The Concord Security Council convened an emergency session. But all they issued was a formal condemnation. No sanctions, no fleet, no justice. Bound by treaties, they cited the risk of escalation. The war room buried beneath the Atlantic Ocean was quiet, lit only by recessed LEDs and the soft glow of tactical holograms. It smelled faintly of ozone and concrete. Massive screens displayed orbital grids, planetary scans, and the rotating emblem of Earth's forgotten Shadow Division. Task Force Nemean. Colonel Marcus Wren stood at the center, arms crossed, watching the footage loop again, the grainy transmission of the Khazari massacre. He didn't blink, didn't flinch. His jaw was clenched so tightly, it looked carved from stone. Behind him, General Karasu of UN Special Commands cleared her throat. "Colonel, you're not obligated." "I read the authorization," Wren said. His voice was quiet, like distant thunder. "This isn't an obligation. It's a promise." He turned to the assembled team. 30 soldiers, silent and still. Operators, assassins, tacticians, demolition experts, cyber warfare legends. Every one of them had been presumed dead or discharged. Officially, Task Force Nemean didn't exist. But it was awake now. Wren stepped forward. "What you saw on that footage wasn't just a war crime. It wasn't just an attack on our people. It was a statement that they could murder our medics, slaughter our peacekeepers, and the galaxy would do nothing." No one moved. They were right. The Concord folded. Our allies hesitated. The only ones who'll answer this are us. He looked each operator in the eyes. "So here's what we do. We send our own statement." He pressed a button. The holograms changed. Detailed scans of Khazari logistics hubs, communication arrays, munition silos, and forward operating bases bloomed into focus, each marked in red. Operation Nemean has 3 objectives, Wren continued. 1. Dismantle their ability to wage war. 2. Decapitate their chain of command. 3. Make sure every species in the galaxy knows one truth. He paused. "You do not draw blood from art healers." 4 days later, the Khazari Dominion's outer defense grid blinked off without warning. On the edge of their territory, An unmarked human vessel slid out of dark space and launched a single payload, a high-orbit cloaked relay drone. It reactivated ancient satellite shells buried in Varelia's orbit, repurposed for kinetic telemetry. Within 47 minutes, coordinated strikes eliminated 6 orbital defense platforms, 2 communications relays, and a deep space listening post. No alarms sounded. No distress calls got through. On the ground, Khazari command outposts went dark one by one. Ammunition depots erupted in fireballs as invisible figures stalked through their corridors, planting charges and vanishing before sensors caught a blip. Field commanders were found dead in their bunkers, throats slit, security footage overwritten. Drones buzzed low through city streets, leaving behind silent packages that detonated with perfect precision, only hitting military targets, never civilians. No names, no insignias, just fire everywhere. And with each smoldering crater, one thing became clear to every frightened Khazari officer. This wasn't war. It was punishment. Back in his command seat aboard the stealth cruiser Aegis, Colonel Rand watched as Operation NEMEA in Phase 2 went active. His voice, calm and measured, echoed across the fleet's encrypted channels. They bled our angels. Now we send the devils. The jungle moon of Threxos 4 was supposed to be untouchable. Nestled in a deep gravity well, protected by overlapping stealth fields, and hidden from most galactic charts, it served as the Khazari Dominion's primary black site, an interrogation and bioweapons facility for undesirable species. No one got in. No one escaped. Most didn't even know it existed. That changed at 2:17 local time. The first sign was a cascade of silent power outages. Not dramatic explosions, just quiet collapses. Comm towers going offline, perimeter sensors glitching, drones falling from the sky like dead birds. Then the outer patrols began disappearing. Corporal Xevlik of the Khazari sentries found his squadmates dead in undergrowth, throats opened, rifles still slung across their backs. No alarms had sounded. No enemy spotted. Just blood soaking the roots. Panicked, he keyed his comm. Base command, this is Delta Patrol. A whisper cut in over his headset. Too late. The line went dead. So did Xevlik. From the tree line, Task Force Nemean emerged like ghosts. Black armor, matte and soundless. Helmets sealed, visors gleaming with red HUD overlays. No spoken words, just gestures and encrypted tight beam links. Each operator moved with surgical precision. Sergeant Aya Quinn, Nemean infiltration lead, led her team through the west corridor of the facility. Her bioscanner chirped once. Hostiles, 12, clustered in a control room. Non-combatants, 0. She signed. Flash, sweep, wipe. They moved. A drone zipped in through a ventilation duct, silently tagged targets with laser pings. Quinn's squad burst through a side door. Flashbangs hissed, disorienting the Khazari. Suppressed shots followed. Short, rhythmic pops. 12 in, 0 out. The room went still. Sector Charlie clear, Quinn reported. Across the compound, similar scenes played out. Colonel Rand himself descended into the central lab, where Khazari scientists were experimenting on sedated Virelian prisoners, survivors of the very villages that had once hosted human medics. He didn't speak. He simply shot each scientist through the skull, one after another. No mercy, no trials, just judgment. Within 20 minutes, the black site was under full Nemean control. The bioweapon data was extracted, then deleted. The prisoners were freed. And as the operators ascended to evac, Colonel Rand left behind a parting gift, a high-yield fusion charge set on a countdown. As the last dropship cleared orbit, Threxos 4 vanished in a white flash. Millions across the galaxy watched it on the darkwave feeds. Some cheered, some recoiled, but all understood. Earth hadn't sent diplomats. It had sent lions. Back aboard the stealth cruiser Aegis, Rand stood in the operations bay, helmet under his arm. His face was impassive, but his eyes burned. General Karasu's voice crackled through the comm. Phase 2 is complete. Civilian casualties. 0. Ren replied. Facility personnel only. Good. The Concord is squirming under diplomatic pressure from the Dominion. They want someone to blame. Ren smiled coldly. They're welcome to try. He looked at the image still burned onto the holo display. Dr. Elena Voss, cradling a child. Phase 3. Approved, Ren said, turning away. We hit their capital next. The Khazari Dominion capital of Jerikai Prime was ancient. Its spires pierced the clouds like the teeth of titans, and its central district pulsed with plasma-lit opulence. For over 5 centuries, the Dominion's rulers had stood unchallenged in their arrogance, protected by fleets, treaties, and fear. Until now. 3 orbital defense rings, 200 interceptor drones, dozens of ground-to-orbit artillery platforms, all operational. It didn't matter. The attack began with a ripple, barely perceptible, just a brief data loop in their planetary defense grid, a half-second pause in telemetry. Then the sky cracked open. 6 Nemean stealth ships dropped from dark space at relativistic speed, their hulls sheathed in counter-sensor foam. The moment they cleared real space distortion, they launched hypersonic penetration rounds. Each round carried quantum-stabilized warheads, engineered not to level cities, but to punch through bunkers with perfect precision. The first target, the Ministry of War. The second, the Orbital Defense Control Nexus. The third, High Chancellor Urzik's personal estate. Each strike hit its mark. No warning, no countermeasure, no chance. Inside the Dominion High Council chamber, panic reigned. Alarm klaxons howled. Guards barked confused orders. Ministers shouted over one another as the lights flickered. This is an act of war, shrieked Minister Talvik. Earth has no jurisdiction here. Earth didn't claim jurisdiction, said a new voice, crackling through the secure chamber's speaker array. It was human, calm, cold. Colonel Wren. You had your chance, his voice echoed. You butchered our healers. Now you learn what we do to butchers. Talvik reached for the comm override, but the controls locked up. Wren's voice continued. We offered peace. We offered mercy. You answered with blood. So now we speak the only language you taught us to use. At that moment, every screen in the capital flickered to life. Footage rolled. The execution of Earth medics, the burning tents, the weeping patients, and then the aftermath. The surgical annihilation of Khazari black sites, armories, convoys. The footage ended on the insignia of Task Force Nemean, a lion's head, crowned in fire. Across the galaxy, the message spread. On trading hubs and mining stations, in spaceports and arcologies, people watched in stunned silence. They had laughed at Earth before, soft-hearted Terrans who clung to ethics and treaties, always helping, never retaliating. Not anymore. Some species mourned, others cheered, but all understood. Earth had limits, and they had been broken. Back aboard the Aegis, Wren leaned on the central console. His operators stood silently behind him, watching as the Dominion's leadership descended into chaos. But not everyone celebrated. Aya Quinn approached, helmet off, brows furrowed. Sir, it's working. But at what cost? Wren didn't look at her. The cost of silence, he said quietly, was the blood of our best people. He turned. And now, the galaxy will never be silent again. The Galactic Concord met in emergency session beneath the vaulted crystalline dome of the Spire of Accord, orbiting neutral ground above the gas giant Litheros. Representatives from over 100 member species filled the chamber. Holograms buzzed overhead. Translation fields hummed. The room crackled with tension. At the center stood Ambassador Lion Harrow, Earth's envoy, eyes hard as obsidian, dressed not in diplomat's robes, but in the gray and black of a wartime commander. Let the record show, rumbled the Concord's arch-mediator, a translucent being of light and tendrils, that Earth has conducted unsanctioned strikes against a sovereign Concord member world, resulting in over 12,000 military casualties and extensive orbital damage. The Khazari delegate hissed. Terrorist actions, assassinations, covert sabotage, and now threats against our capital. Ambassador Harrow didn't blink. You murdered our doctors. The chamber quieted. You bombed a medical camp, burned patients alive, executed unarmed medics. The Concord issued a condemnation and did nothing else. So yes, we responded. The Hydrix delegate clicked its mandibles. With lethal force against an entire government. We targeted only military and strategic assets. Civilian deaths, 0. Harrow leaned forward. Can the Khazari say the same? The silence that followed was thick enough to feel. One by one, delegates looked away. Harrow's voice softened, but it cut sharper for it. You mistake our mercy for weakness, our restraint for fear. But know this, Earth's strength isn't just in our weapons. It's in our choice not to use them, until we have no choice at all. She turned to the Concord. You abandoned your own principles. We didn't. Elsewhere, the galaxy shifted uneasily. In the Lurali Belt, smugglers whispered that Earth had weapons that could tear apart suns. On Syrinx 9, protesters carried human flags in solidarity, demanding their governments take a stand. Even among Earth's allies, cracks formed. On board the UNSC Olympus, General Karasu reviewed intelligence with a narrowed gaze. Support for the Dominion is crumbling, she told Colonel Rand over secure comms. But so is our diplomatic position. The more we strike, the more the middle systems question whether we're peacekeepers or predators. Ren, surrounded by his fire teams, didn't hesitate. They can question whatever they like. But the Dominion understands only power. We showed them mercy once. They saw it as an invitation. He paused, voice lowering. This time, they'll see it for what it is, a gift they'll never receive again. But not all within Earth's leadership agreed. In the underground cities of Mars, anti-war protests surged. Families of the medics lost demanded justice, but some questioned how many more had to die in their name. The war was changing Earth, and not everyone was sure they liked what they saw. And deep within the void, on a forgotten moon orbiting a dead star, the Dominion's shadow forces were already planning a counterstrike. Because even lions, no matter how fierce, eventually bleed. The attack came without warning. At 3:46 Earth Standard Time, the orbital colony Sanctuary Hilo 3, a civilian medical station orbiting Europa, went dark. No distress signal, no debris field. Just gone. 20 seconds later, the Daedalus Array, Earth's deep space monitoring network, picked up multiple spatial disruptions. Not Dominion warships, not strike fleets. Worse, ghost lances, experimental Dominion stealth weapons, massless until impact, capable of piercing planetary shields and detonating inside hardened targets. Untraceable. Undeniable. The second strike hit Kilimanjaro Base, Earth's primary field hospital for alien outreach. Over 600 non-combatants vaporized in a flash of white fire. Earth wept. Humanity had roared like lions, but now, for the first time, they bled. In the deep void, aboard the Aegis, Colonel Rand stared at the casualty reports. The screen was stained with red icons. Civilian. Civilian. Medic. Civilian. Confirmation, he asked. Aya Quinn's voice was low. It's them. Dominion Black Ops. They're using our own playbook. Hit and fade. No tags. No trace. Targets. Only soft ones, sir. Outreach posts. Civilian convoys. Hospitals. Ren's jaw worked silently before he spoke. They're telling us. Two can play this game. Around the command table, the room was quiet. Even hardened operators, men and women who had raised fortresses and slit throats in zero, looked shaken. We underestimated them. whispered Sergeant Bran. "We thought they'd fold like the others." "They can't beat us militarily," Quinn said. "So now they're doing what cowards do. They're making us hurt." Ren nodded slowly. "Then we make it clear, bleeding lions don't die easy." Back on Earth, General Karasu faced the Council of Nations. The chamber was quiet, grief-stricken. "The enemy has adapted," she said. "They've seen our strength and chosen to respond with terror." The Australian Prime Minister leaned forward. "So what's the play, General?" "We escalate again. Risk full-scale war with half the Concord watching." Karasu didn't blink. "We don't escalate." Murmurs. "We evolve." She tapped a screen. Blueprints unfolded. Interlinked defense grids, mobile orbital shield platforms, AI-guided threat interceptors. Every strike they deliver buys us data. Patterns. Signatures. They think they're ghosts, but even ghosts cast shadows. Her voice turned iron. "They struck our angels. We sent fire. Now they strike our innocents. We send the storm." On a distant Dominion moon, beneath the ruins of an old Centauri fortress, the Khazari War Council gathered in the dark. High Chancellor Urzik's voice was filled with venom. "Let them mourn. Every drop of Terran blood spilt fractures their precious unity. They are strong, yes, but they are emotional, passionate. That is their weakness." An advisor frowned. "And if they do not break?" Urzik's smile was slow. "Then we shatter the cage around them. We make them monsters. Let the galaxy see what Earth becomes when rage consumes it." The Dominion expected a second inferno. After the massacre at Sanctuary Hilo 3, after Kilimanjaro burned, they waited for Earth's vengeance. For cities to fall, for moons to shatter, for the lions to rip out throats. They got silence instead. No retaliatory strikes. No veiled threats. No dead worlds. Just one signal, beamed across every Concord frequency, civilian and military alike. A human woman's face appeared on the feed. Not a soldier. Not a general. Dr. Mara Chen, formerly of the Earth Healer Corps. She'd lost both legs in the sanctuary attack. Her voice, though trembling, was clear. "I was there when the Khazari slaughtered our medics. I was there when our task forces burned their black sites. I've seen both sides of this war. I understand why we lit the fire. But now we decide what that fire becomes. Do we burn until there's nothing left? Or do we choose to shape the fire into something that warms, protects, and heals again?" She paused. Then, "We are Terran. We do not fear war, but we do not worship it either. That is the difference. That is what they still don't understand." The message ended. The galaxy held its breath. Aboard the Aegis, Task Force Nenian prepared for their final operation. Operation Lionfall, a surgical decapitation strike against the Dominion's throne world. Total blackout. 0 survivors. Colonel Rand stood before his team, helmet under arm. "Orders came down," he said. "Full green light. No restraint." The fire behind his eyes, once white-hot, had cooled to embers. He looked at Quinn, at Bran, at the empty seats of those they'd lost. Then he turned to the console and deleted the mission. "Sir," Quinn blinked. "We're standing down." "No," Ren said. "We're standing up. They hit our healers. So we're going to do what they never expected." He activated the shipwide comm. "All units. New directive. Operation Restoration. We're taking the throne world. Intact. We extract prisoners. We disable their weapons. We take their leaders alive." A pause. "And we show them what it means to be human." They hit the Dominion's capital not with annihilation, but with precision. Every anti-air battery silenced. Every war room infiltrated. Civilians shielded, not harmed. Hospitals spared, not razed. And then, at the Palace of Urzik, Task Force Nemian walked through the gates not as conquerors, but as judges. Colonel Rand faced Urzik, disarmed and trembling. His face betrayed no fury, only cold certainty. "You wanted us to become monsters," Ren said quietly. "But we're something worse." He leaned in. "We're human, and we chose not to become you." Urzik looked away. For the first time, he understood. Weeks later, the Dominion collapsed. Without fire to fuel them, without fear to command, their power rotted from within. And Earth built, rebuilt, healed. A statue was erected at the new Galactic Concord Plaza, a medic holding a child, surrounded by lions. One watching, one roaring, one kneeling. Beneath it, a plaque. "They drew blood from our healers, so we sent those who bring fire. But fire, too, can be mercy."